The Louisville Cardinals is a team that has plenty of turnover but lots of talent.
Yeah, they're an interesting team because it felt like watching Louisville that at times it was just Jordan Nwora last year, and he was one of the best players in college basketball. But there were games where he just could not score, and he just kept taking the ball, and Chris Mack wouldn't do anything about it. So is Jordan Nwora a good or a bad thing leaving? I think it's more than likely a bad thing because he was certainly capable of just taking over a game and dominating for Louisville. But I don't know. They're going to be an interesting team. I don't think they're going to finish in second place in the ACC like they did last year. I think they drop back towards a middle tier team. Still probably a tournament team. They're getting two good transfers. Charles Minland from San Francisco, or University of San Francisco. He got 14 points per game last year. And then Carlik Jones, 20 points per game from Radford. So those guys are going to have to step up and play in a much tougher ACC conference in which you're seeing a ton of teams that are really good defensively. I'm not sold on Louisville. I think they'll be a lower digit seed, in that 7 to 10 range. Certainly not as good as they were last year, though. And
I think that number right there probably implies that Louisville is going to have to finish in the top 5 of the ACC, especially if it doesn't turn out for a lot of these teams' improvement. I think we can group them in with Miami and Virginia Tech. However, I think Louisville is above them. And I think that they do have some guys. Radford grad transfer, Carlik Jones, San Francisco grad transfer, Millen. Those are guys that are going to have to be relied on to step into a bigger role in a much bigger conference. Samuel Williamson is also one of those guys that are going to have to step into a bigger role for these guys to improve. The turnover is very evident. Grad transfers, freshmen, and, of course, the absence of Jordan Nwora. However, the talent's still there. And obviously, grad transfers bring in a ton of D1 experience. They'll have to learn in a new conference and a tougher conference almost straight off the bat this season that, this is going to be very tough competition. It's not like the Big South or especially not like the West Coast Conference to where the West Coast Conference has a couple of those teams. And I think that's where a guy like Midland will have a little more experience playing top-tier competition, but not Jones. I mean, the Big South doesn't have teams like Virginia and Duke all over the place. I mean, it's just not there. And we'll see Williamson, he needs to step into that bigger role, flesh in with the grad transfers to make this team successful. I think it's possible for Louisville to try and push into the top 3. They're not going to get into the top 2 without a doubt. And I think that a 5th place finish would be very ideal for the Louisville Cardinals. And I like them at that slot. I think they're a little better than Miami with some of the grad transfers. And I think they are definitely better than Virginia Tech, who will probably be on that bubble line. But I think Louisville, 5th place, 7 to 10 seed the NCAA tournament, that is not a bad spot for them. I think that they are the bottom of Tier 1B because I think they can try to push up with a team like Florida State and North Carolina. You got something to say?
One more thing. It's going to be really interesting to see how the Louisville-Kentucky rivalry goes with what went down on social media with Chris Mack and Kentucky not wanting to go to play at Louisville this year. Is that rivalry going to be reignited? Because Kentucky's really owned Louisville for the past couple of years. I know this is kind of straying away from ACC play, but Louisville, Kentucky, arguably the second best college basketball rivalry because no one's going to argue against Duke UNC. We're sane here on the basketball bonanza. But Louisville, they had an improved year last year. We'll see if it can build off of it and be a little bit better than what we see as a 7 to 10 seed and 5th place or 6th place in the ACC.
And I'm happy you mentioned that because in a season where quality non-conference wins are going to be sort of missing, that's a game that Louisville needs to get. And that's a game they need to get to improve the resume. That might be one of the only non-conference opportunities they get. And obviously the Big Ten ACC challenge will be another one of those opportunities, but winning against Kentucky will be a massive step for Louisville to trying to trek upwards and prove that we could compete with the big boys in this season. And that's a game that any team like Louisville, like Miami, like Virginia Tech alike would die for in this COVID season. And if Louisville gets it, they need to take advantage of it 100%.